Well, we might get started.
Could you just give us your name, degree, year, age, slogan and colour?
My name is Kate Bullen. My degree is a Bachelor of Arts majoring in German. I'm in my 3rd year. Slogan?
Yep.
It's your union electricated. And my colour is purple.
And how old are you?
Oh, sorry, I'm 20.
20.
21 this week.
Fantastic. And you have a faction and campaign manager?
Yep, I do. I'm a member of NLS and my campaign managers are Eva Duns and Amy Knox.
Excellent. So you're aligned with a federal political party?
Yep, I'm a member of the ALP.
Excellent. Now, so just kind of talking about some of the other candidates who are involved in this election, just to start off with in the field. What other candidates do you feel you share political philosophies with in any way, if any?
If any? Well, definitely Alicia Aitken-Radburn. Obviously, we're in the same political party while on different factions of it. Liam Carrigan is obviously another great progressive candidate, and Egg McMahon, even though we're not in the same party, we're both really progressive.
Fantastic, that's awesome. And obviously in terms of the election, you have to preference other people and do preference deals. Have you at this stage been considering who you're likely to preference first and second after yourself?
No, I'm not involved in any of the preference talks.
Okay,
yeah.
Fantastic. So you haven't heard any word from other members of your caucus and who you'll be looking to do a deal with?
Not really. I think that they don't want to stress me out. They just want me to let me get on with my job.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Who will you vote for president of the USU if you're elected?
At the moment, I'm just concentrating on getting myself elected. And if I do, then all offers and all people will be completely considered.
So you're not considering, because at this stage it's looking like the field will be Robby Magyar, Tara Waniganayaka, Tim Matthews. There isn't anyone among those 3 people who stands out to you at this point as being someone who is more qualified or has a similar ideology to your own?
I would support a progressive, we would obviously support a progressive candidate in whoever that person was, and we would, consider all the options very, very carefully.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any particular things that would be playing into your decision at that point?
Obviously, the experiences of the past year since the last election, important things that have happened, and which way those people voted on important things is obviously important.
The Raue case?
Yeah, definitely the Raue case.
Playing into. Okay, well, why don't we move to that? How would you have voted on Tom Raue's dismissal and why?
I would have voted to keep Tom Raue because I believe that he didn't do anything wrong in the first place and that he's a great voice for students.
Okay, fantastic. So you don't believe that the content of the leak was confidential, or?
Actually, on that point, obviously having worked for the USU for the past year, I think that was definitely a consideration. However, I really genuinely believe that what Tom leaked was not damaging to any staff member. There was no name linked to it at all. It was literally just one sentence.
Okay, sure. Obviously, one of the big questions that surrounded the Raue case was one of union transparency and the direction of the union in terms of student control and all those kinds of things. Do you believe that your union is currently a transparent organisation? And if not, what measures would you like to put in place to see it become more transparent?
No, I don't believe that it's as transparent as a proper union should be at all. There are measures that can be taken place, and I'm really pleased with the initiative of BB and Tara with their transparency review. I think that they're onto a good thing to start with, and I would really like to see where they go with it. Fantastic.
Do you have any ideas because obviously one of the elements of your policy statement is to increase the transparency of the union. Do you have any particular proposals that you'd be wanting to take forward, or any particular measures you'd like to see put in place in order to increase that transparency?
I actually really like something that Liam, if I can say that, I really like something that Liam is saying, because obviously all of my ideas are generally generated by the student body. That's the whole point of the campaign. But I really like Liam's accountability. He's got like an online grievance thing going on, and I really like that accountability measure.
Sure.
I think that more things like that can be put in place, such as maybe board directors can have to do more reports and stuff like that.
Sure. One of the regulations that's in place at the moment that I think people are arguing kind of increases the opacity of the union is that of Honi Soit and other attendants at board meetings not being able to tweet the names of staff at those meetings. Do you support that policy or not, and why is that?
I think that Twitter is a really awesome tool for sharing things really, really quickly. And I think that in terms of information, it's really important for transparency. Like, you know, you guys are sitting there immediately saying, and everybody's like, well, not everybody, but people who care are on their computers. I'm only hesitant for staff names because I'm signing up for this student politic business. And all of us are here and we are accountable to the student body, definitely, 100%. Anything I ever say can be tweeted. But, you know, I think that staff didn't sign up for that, and it can impact their future careers.
So your preference would be to maintain the current policy of...
But what they say is definitely important.
Yeah, okay.
What different departments have to say is important, but maybe not the name. Yeah.
Okay.
In terms of kind of looking back at the past year in the union, I'd like to see if you could assess for us Hannah Morris's presidency, what you thought about it, what were the strengths, what were the weaknesses, things that you might like to see changed after tenure.
I think that she started out really strong, and I was really pleased. She'd obviously just come off things like the women's portfolio where she did the AA review. In terms of her presidency, I think she started strong, and I have been gradually more disappointed with the whole Tom case, and also most recently when it was discovered that she neglected to consult the board about the reappointment of the Senate appointed directors.
Sure. In terms of the other policies and achievements of this last board, are there any particular things that stand out to you either as having been particularly good or particularly otherwise? Particularly
good, I think it's really good that the board has embraced things like BB's sex and consent idea. She originally went for a week, but even having a day, I think that's really, really exciting that they're open to new things like that. And also Health and Wellbeing Week, which was something that Eve put forward, and also the beginnings of this transparency review, which is no means over after one session.
Sure.
How would you have voted on the LifeChoice Society?
Yep. While I'm in favour of, you know, students being able to get together with similar ideas and make societies, I think that those societies need to be genuinely, you know, while I might not join a ukulele society, I think that all students should be able to if they want to. And I think that life choices as a society, those ideas that they perpetuate are really damaging to, obviously, pro-choice women like myself.
So
I would have voted to make it not a society.
And because of the concern that it has for harming women? Okay, fantastic. We might move away from union politics now and onto your politics in general. You described yourself as a progressive candidate. What do you think makes you a progressive person?
That's such a big question.
Yeah.
I'm a really big unionist and a feminist, and I love democracy, and I'm in favour of social democracy. I think that all of those things, you know, add together to make me progressive. And I'm really in favour of, you know, things like collective autonomy, and those are the most crucial things for making the whole of the union and the whole of the society more progressive in general.
So obviously, while the University of Sydney Union does have the title of a union, functionally it often kind of operates much more as a service provider than a union as a unionist such as yourself might tend to perceive it. Would you be in favour of the University of Sydney Union moving away from the function that it's traditionally existed and into more of an activist role?
I think that there's room for both, definitely, because obviously we need to think about revenue to keep those ideas going. But definitely, I think that we should be moving the union to a more activist stance.
Are there any particular fights or issues that you'd like to see the union engaging on that it's not doing at the moment?
Well, when I was running Reclaim the Night last year, I approached I talked to people that I knew in the union, and I wanted to see whether we could get a USU contingent to the Reclaim the Night rally that I was organising. The union did support Reclaim the Night, we held a panel discussion about a month before, which was run through Nay Brooks' women's program, and also they donated services such as a marquee to the day. And I think that those are the kinds of things that the USU can continue to do for rallies.
Sure, but I suppose my question would be that do you regard that directors of the University of Sydney Union Board should be acting as political activists or as kind of heads of a service providing organisation primarily?
I think that they should, well, they are student representatives obviously, and we should keep them accountable. And I think that's a really hard question, but like always using the politics to inform what they do in the organisation. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Like, obviously it's a lot of money going around, and that money should be used for the most important things, which are, you know, being progressive, supporting, you know, minority groups, such as through the Gadigal scheme, where Indigenous students can get free access cards and things like that. Yeah.
Sure.
So, for instance, last year during the strikes, would you have voted or argued for the union going on strike at the same time as the students were on strike? Or the staff on strike, sorry?
Yes, I would. I think that, you know, that would have been a good idea. Obviously, I don't, as not a board director yet, hopefully, I don't know what the financial situation was behind that. But I think that, yeah, it could have.
Cool. So you're being run by NLS, and are a member of their caucus, but up until last year you were a member of Student Unity, which is a rival Labor faction. Could you talk us through the decision to switch factions last year?
Yeah, sure. I became involved in Student Unity just through joining the ALP club on campus, which is a great club, and I discovered that maybe I didn't agree with some things that were in that group, and so I made the very difficult decision in terms of friendships to move to the left faction, which meant that I could really increase my activism, which is what I'm passionate about.
Sure. I mean, I suppose, was it motivated by a kind of perceiving a difference in their policies, or?
Yeah, definitely.
So what policies were particularly interesting or engaging for you in NLS that didn't exist in Student Unity?
Things like, obviously, feminism. Well, yeah, feminism, socialism, democracy and unionism, 4 pillars of NLS. All of those things really, really spoke to me. More broadly, like more specifically speaking, refugee policy, environmental policy, all of the labour for refugees, labour for the environment, those are the things that are run by Labour Left. And I think that, you know, that was really important to me.
Okay. I suppose I'd be interested in seeing how you might respond to people who think that the switching of factions indicates some lack of political conviction, I suppose.
Oh, well, I think that, you know, we're all young and we're all still forming our own political identity, and I joined a group because I was interested in things, found that it didn't really suit me, so I joined another one, and, you know, I'm happy now.
Cool.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So NLS is a binding caucus. Does this mean that decisions you make as a board director would have to be approved by your caucus first?
Yes, it does.
So what would happen in the event that your personal views differed from caucus in general?
I can't perceive a situation where that would ever happen, because we're all a group of people bound by those same, you know, we all believe in those same ideas, so there hasn't been a decision yet where I've ever disagreed.
There have been instances in the past, though, where members of NLS have disagreed. I mean, I suppose earlier this year, for example, the incidents with NUS, where some members of UTS NLS came out against the faction because of the caucus's decision to pre-select non-Indigenous students for essentially Indigenous positions. If you found yourself in that sort of situation where you thought that you really did object, or that there was something that was really problematic with it, the decision made by a caucus, how do you think you would approach negotiating that situation?
Okay. In terms of the situation with the UTS NLS people, I wasn't even at the conference. I was in I was in the UK, I wasn't involved at all in any of that, I don't know about it. If it was really like super serious like that, then, you know, leaving the faction is something that I would consider. But at the moment, there is seriously nothing that I can think of.
Okay, fantastic. Do you think voters are aware of the fact that in electing you to be a board director, they're not electing you per se, but electing you on behalf of NLS, which is a body that would bind you to make kind of collective decisions on their behalf?
That's a good question. Over the past few days, I haven't made my politics a secret. You know, those are the visions that I see for the union, which is why I'm out there talking to people. If anybody ever asks me about NLS, I'm super honest, like I'm being with you now. And people that I've explained it to have actually seemed to think that it's a good thing, because I know that I have those accountability structures for the next 2 years. I have a group of people making sure that I stick to what I promised, and B, stick to the values that I've been espousing, which is why people will vote for me, hopefully.
Yeah. We might move along to your policies for this election.
Yeah.
Your policy statement is quite short in comparison with those of a lot of the other candidates. Why did you make a decision to have such kind of a limited policy platform this election?
Yeah, okay, so the 3 things that it really basically my policy statement says are energise student voices, ignite an inclusive union, and spark our services. Those are like my 3 core values about what we can do in the union. But my biggest thing is about student consultation, which is why I decided to make the kind of wild card move of really consulting from day one, you know, right from the very beginning of walk and talks on Monday morning. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I suppose, like, in some ways you're taking these student ideas you're soliciting from students that you're speaking to as almost a substitute in a way for having other policies. Do you think that how would you respond to people who would say that that's not valid for you not to come out with your own kind of proactive ideas to start off with?
I think that anybody that says it's not valid is maybe not understanding what I'm actually trying to do, which is really properly ask, what do students want? And then those are the things that I will obviously fight for.
Sure.
Substituting for other ideas, I do have my own ideas, which is why every heading has got little things next to it. But I guess I found over the past few years with other elections that I found, like when I wasn't a campaigner, that I felt like I was being really bombarded with ideas, and which is why I, you know, so far it's working, but overall it might not work, I might not get elected.
Sure.
Running on a sparser policy platform essentially means that you have fewer promises that you are sort of held accountable to once you're elected. What would you say that's a criticism of running with the strategy that you
Yeah. So this is the strategy that we're using at the moment. This weekend we're going to be tallying up everything that people have said, and then we're going to come out with much more specific things next week. Literally tallying up every single piece of paper that we've got.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that in terms of if there are like 10 or 15 people who want a particular policy, that will be added to your policy statement?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. So could you give us some more detail about some of the policies that you have spoken about in your policy statement? One of them was having more diverse leadership opportunities within the union. Could you kind of elaborate on that a little bit more and what kind of diversity you'd be looking to achieve?
Yeah, sure. This semester I've been running the Australian discussion group for international students, and I was running that by myself. It was really hard. There was, at the beginning, the very first session, like 20 international students turned up, and I tried, but there was no way that I could have a meaningful conversation with all of them to help them improve their English, which is what it's all about. I would really like to see perhaps roles created like Australian discussion group program, like coordinator, and bringing on board more local students to make more groups.
So this is essentially creating more leadership positions and creating more groups within the union?
Yeah, so like a specialised international student, like a team. My efforts, I mean, I'm happy to do it. I've absolutely loved Australian Discussion Group. Ideally, there would be those leaders of those groups would be compensated in some way other than the skills that I've gained.
Okay, so creating more paid positions for student leaders.
Yeah,
I think there's a risk that in creating too many paid positions for student leaders, there is an excess of expenditure on kind of positions that don't necessarily need it, and B, perhaps an excess of bureaucracy for creating a lot of extra positions.
To be honest, I hadn't thought about either of those things to do with it. Obviously, finance is just really important. That's what the board directors are in charge of. Bureaucracy, do you mean in terms of like the application process for the position or something like that?
Yeah, I suppose, I mean, there are a lot of portfolios that exist within the union at the moment, and they all require paperwork and staff and resources and all that kind of stuff. I suppose in creating more official positions for roles, my concern will be that you would kind of just add a lot more branches to the union that aren't necessarily going to help it operate effectively and efficiently.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess that's something that we can look at when it comes to it. But I am really passionate about things like that, so I would think that maybe the paperwork would be worth it if we get more international students involved, if we get more satellite campus students involved and things like that. Yeah.
Have you thought about the financial impact of creating these positions?
Yeah, I have. I mean, obviously people need to be paid. I've been lucky enough to be paid as an access desk casual for the past year and a half. But I think that the benefits that it will bring should always outweigh cost.
Are there any particular areas that you'd be interested in reducing expenditure in the current USU budget to kind of divert it to other programs such as this one that you'd be proposing?
No, I don't like cuts to student services at all.
Sure. Well, I mean, one of the questions that we've been asking other candidates is if you had to cut $1 million from the USU budget just by virtue of perhaps the USU getting less SAF revenue next year or something like that, where would you cut it from?
Yeah, so like I just said, I don't like any cuts to student services. If a renegotiation with the university and other organisations is really not possible, then I think that if it was just like a straight out million but we still get some SAF, we could look at the financial contingency plan that the union had, put together in the situation where we don't get any SAF, and we can draw some ideas from there of what to do.
Are there any particular ideas that come out of that would be appealing to you?
I haven't read it enough to make any kind of recommendation.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
One of your other policies is a review of AA for the Board and C&S. Why do you perceive the need for this?
Obviously this year, only 3, so there were 10 people that originally nominated for Board, but obviously now we're down to 8. Only 3 of the 10 were women identifying, which is obviously disappointing. But I really liked what Hannah Morris did with her women's portfolio AA review, and I think that it's been nearly 2 years. Let's have another look at it. It's not. I don't think it's unreasonable to have another look at it, even though I'm a passionate advocate for AA.
So how would you change it if you could? The current AA policy.
I don't think there's anything wrong with the current AA policy.
Would you be in kind of having a review of the AA policy? Would that be exclusively looking at AA in relation to women?
I am not queer identifying, so I couldn't possibly comment on queer AA. I think that should probably come from somebody much more experienced in that area.
So, but in pushing for an AA review, you're not looking to increase perhaps AA stipulations for queer identifying students or international students or people of colour or anything like that?
I don't fit any of those groups, so I can't say we definitely need it. But if, as I said a little bit earlier, if autonomous collectives decide that is what they want, then I will be all in favour of it, definitely.
So you would have to wait the direction from those autonomous collectives before you push for that kind of change to the policy?
I think that they're definitely good ideas, but before I commit to something, I want to make sure that I've spoken to relevant people who it affects. Yeah.
Sure.
You mentioned that you would like to subsidise RSA courses.
Yep.
How much would you be subsidising? So they generally cost, from what we've done research on, they generally cost about $100.
Yep.
How much would you be subsidising from that?
I don't know anything about the detailed financial situation of the union, but definitely partial subsidy or maybe even one day full subsidy is a good idea. In terms of like a dollar value, I don't think that I can say that confidently, or I think it would be wrong for me to make a judgment. Yeah.
Okay, sure. So you haven't kind of done a costing estimate or anything like that about the policy yet?
No, I haven't.
No problem. Another one of your policies is providing free breakfasts during exams. Several other candidates have a similar policy, but they suggest providing free breakfast all year round in order to help low SES students get food. Why is it that you would only be looking to provide breakfast during the exam period and probably in that way not give the help to low SES students that other candidates are suggesting giving?
Obviously, I'm not against helping low SES students. The SRC elections last year, the breakfast bar was a policy that I really campaigned really hard for. I like with the RSA courses, actually, once I have a better idea of the financial situation, then maybe other candidates know something about the finances that I don't know. I don't think that's possible at the moment, but if it was possible all year round, then I would definitely preference that over just exam weeks.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea about like kind of what providers you'd be looking to or infrastructure you'd be looking to implement in order to make that possible?
What do you mean, sorry?
So in terms of like, if you were looking about providing free breakfast during exam, would it be a matter of union board directors going down to barbecues and cooking up bacon, or would you be looking to get an outlet to provide them? I mean, I'm just sort of trying to get an idea of the practical implementation of this policy, what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah, there are breakfast bars at other universities which work in different ways. So I believe that UNSW has a stall on a main strip, whereas UTS has like an actual, it's called Bluebird Cafe. I think that probably if, we were all kind of in agreeing with this policy, then we could look to other universities and where they've implemented and see what works and what doesn't, and then try and make our own in between or one or the other kind of scenario.
Sure. I think that's probably all the questions that I have. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
In your policy statement, you mentioned the consultative committee. Could you sort of explain that idea a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So, I thought about the consultative committee as a large committee of, well, maybe not, medium-sized committee of students, much like the debates committee or the C&S committee, which would have a various identifying students on there, such as queer, women, people of colour, international students, and I was even thinking about satellite campus students and postgrads, say, and it would be their job I hope that by the end of my 2-year term, if I'm lucky enough to be elected, that we could foster a kind of relationship between the board and the committee where the committee funnels ideas from the student body, particularly relating to those identities, up to the board, and also where when the board has to make decisions about things that are related to those types of people, that they feel, maybe not constitutionally, but they feel ethically bound to go to the committee about things, yeah.
Do you think there's any way in which there will be a double up between students from this committee and perhaps, I know at the moment the union has queer portfolio holders and women's portfolio holders. What would the difference between, say, a queer representative on the consultative committee and the holder of the queer portfolio? What's the difference between the roles that you would perceive?
So do you mean queer portfolio holder like the board director?
Yes.
Okay, well perhaps they could sit on the committee if they wanted to. I mean, board directors are a bit busy. But also I'm a strong believer that no one person should have too many roles, that everybody should have an opportunity to be skilled up in things like that.
How would you go about appointing people to the consultative committee? How would they be selected?
Perhaps, say for women and queer, collectives could put up people. yeah, that's an option. For international students, they also have a collective, so they could put up somebody as well. Yeah.
And these people would be asked to speak on behalf of those minority communities on campus?
Yeah, speak on behalf of, and like obviously funnel through those ideas, yeah.
Great.
That's all.
That's awesome. Great,
Oh,
thank you, Kate.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Easy.